go ahead and start the recording, please, if we haven't already. Okay, that's all right. I thought it usually told us. Okay, we are recording, and this is the regularly scheduled January meeting of the Real Estate Appraisers Commission. So let's go ahead and get a call to order. We'll take a quick roll call and then move on to our agenda items.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order, and we'll do roll call.
Right, Mr. Garrison.
Here.
Mr. Atwood.
Here.
Dr. Jane.
Yeah, here.
Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett has not joined virtually. Mr. Mansfield.
Here.
Ms. Alexander.
Here.
Ms. Haston.
Here.
And Ms. Cole.
Here.
All right. Mr. Chairman, at this point, I have a quick agenda item to offer, an amendment. Joining us via phone, we have a professor from Ole Miss, or University of Mississippi, excuse me, I should be a little bit more formal, University of Mississippi. And he is here to tell us about a program that they have applied to the state of Tennessee for, which is an AQB-approved program. This is more informational, and it will allow you all to ask some questions, but at this time, I would like to ask the professor from the University of Mississippi to introduce himself and also give us a summary of his program.
Very good.
All right, thank you for, hi, my name is Sergio. My last name is Garate. I'm a professor here at Ole Miss. I teach real estate, finance, investment, appraisal, and I taught the principal class a couple of times too. And we are applying to have our program approved by the Tennessee board. We have recently been approved by the Appraisal Qualification Board back in May. And we wanted to expand a little bit our frontiers and go to neighboring states too, and try to apply to those appraisal boards so our students can go and find jobs in those areas. We usually place students all over the South. We have approximately 140 students on a regular year, and we teach we start teaching, and we take our students in junior year with the principal class. We are part of the finance department, therefore we are heavily finance oriented, but we have the appraisal class that follow pretty much the Appraisal Institute book, the Real Estate of Appraisal, and we cover all from property rights all the way to writing the report. In our classes, our students go over an appraisal report with the commercial property and the residential property. I think on the big things that we do here, I think our students are prepared to take trainee positions for sure. And of course, they require the experience to get to the certified appraiser. And that's something that we cannot provide, but if they find a good training position, hopefully they can do that one day. Our program was approved for 260 hours by the Appraisal Qualification Board, and we're trying to see whether or not Tennessee will recognize our program there. Any questions that you may have about the program, I can answer those questions to you, and that's the idea of the meeting. If you have questions specific about me, other professors, the School of Business here, I'll be happy to answer those questions. I think that's primarily the idea of the meeting.
Thank you, sir. Members of the commission, are there any questions for Dr. Garate?
I'll go ahead. This is Rex Garrison. I teach a class at East Tennessee State University. I'm curious, is your program approved with the Appraisal Institute also? So they're doing a combination of towards designation and licensing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first step to get to the MIA, the reason we end up at the Appraisal Qualification Board is because they require us to be approved by the Appraisal Qualification Board before you can join the MIA. So we are not doing right now the certification with the MIA, but that's something on the plan. We're one step at a time and trying to get approved by the commissions in the area, and our next step will be go to the MIA for sure.
All right. Are you offering a USPAP class in with the program?
So, we were approved 260 hours, but those 260 hours has a requirement that basically says that our students need to take the USPAP course. That's something that we're not approved to offer, and that needs to be taken by every student that comes out of the program. That's a requirement in terms of courses plus whatever hours they're required in each state.
Out of you mentioned 100 students. Are there 100 students towards the appraisal side of it, or is that just in the real estate program?
Yeah, that's a real estate program. We have students that go into real estate investment sales. Some go to brokerage, commercial brokerage primarily. Some go to residential brokerage, but that's a small portion of them. In appraisal, I would say that probably every year we have 60 students graduate every year right now. And out of those 60, I would say like 6 go into appraisal. So 10% of the class will go to appraisal, and the rest go to brokerage, investment, financial analyst positions, and of that sort. Right now, we have one student that is in, the reason we approached the Tennessee board is because we have one student in Cushman Wakefield that he is working towards his designation. Towards his certification. So that's the reason we approached the board, because we wanted to give that opportunity to other students in our program, and we're looking forward to that.
Yes, I have 2 questions. Number one, is this several courses, or it's not just one course, I don't imagine, so it'd be several courses. And could you give us a brief summary of the content?
Yeah, so in the application, we provided the entire syllabus with a detail of what we cover every week. But the principal class goes to principles of real estate, where we would look at basic property rights. We go and review law and some contract there, but as an intro class, so basically we go into introduction to those topics. We go work with time value of money, mortgages, and we introduce the 3 methods of value. And then they go and jump into the appraisal class, where it's a specifically appraisal class. So we go and work with the real estate, the appraisal of real estate from the Appraisal Institute, and we cover chapters 1 to 31 or 32, well, depending on the edition, but we cover all the way up to the writing of the report. Then they go into the investment class, where we go and do development. We work on different investment vehicles, and those investment vehicles could be either we do like REIT stock pitch. We work with commercial mortgage-backed securities, so they understand how those instruments work. And at the very early stage of that class, we work with residential housing too, a little bit, but that's probably 2 weeks. And then we jump into income-producing properties. In that class, students work with lease-by-lease analysis and appraising a property. Same with the appraisal class. We work with Argus for those 2 classes, for the appraisal and the investment class. And then in the investment class, we just focus on the last portion of the class is basically focused on real estate investment. And we focus primarily in REITs, commercial mortgage-backed securities, and so on.
I've got a couple more questions. Is the program online, or is it in-person classes?
Well, we try to, like the last 2 classes, the appraisal class is in person as well as the investment class, but the intro class is an online class where we cover and we work with Lynn Archer book, which is the principle of real estate, a value approach. And that class goes online. primarily, and then the other 2 classes are in person. But in each one of those classes, we provide also online materials so students can study after that, after the in-person class.
Is the program primarily focused on commercial real estate, or are you doing a little bit of both?
Primarily commercial real estate, I would say. I would say that probably 70%. And then we have because the appraisal class covers either residential or commercial, we go a little bit, they write a residential report, and then they write a commercial report where they go and work in a lease-by-lease analysis for that property.
One more question. Are any of your professors practicing appraisers or had been practicing appraisers?
No, we don't have anybody that have been practicing appraisal. We have a real estate lawyer, which teaches the principle where we go into the property rights area. Then me, my job was primarily valuing acquisitions for Walmart, and so I was working there for five years and valued probably $200 million in property for development, and that's pretty much the real estate experience in the field.
Got a question. Is this something that that we approve, or does this fall under education?
This is already approved by the AQB, so it doesn't really require us to approve it per se. This is kind of a informational opportunity here that can lead to discussion if you like. But we can. We're working on getting you a couple of handouts right now about this, and we can discuss this at length as long as you like.
Michael, what has been approved by AQB? I mean, what is it approved for? Like number of hours? Is it approved for 260 hours of education toward their trainee? I mean, toward their certifications, or?
Go ahead.
So my understanding is that this Bachelor of Business Administration will cover all of the qualifying education for the 4 licensure types, except for the required 15-hour USPAP course. So each cycle, the individuals that are completing the education are going to have to complete USPAP. Some of the other courses from different universities include USPAP, so they're good and they don't have to do any of those, but this is qualified for all qualifying education.
How many hours, Anna?
So we're getting a document to you. I just printed it out. It is essentially the letter from, the Appraisal Foundation to Ole Miss that is telling them about how they have been approved for their courses. And so you'll be able to see exactly which hours are hours approved and the deficiencies. So that's going to be in that first chart. Then at the bottom of the first page, you're going to see a listing of the courses. And then at the top of the second, you'll see a couple of other courses. So you'll see the exact hours that have been approved and what will be required of the individual that is completing this program in order to be satisfactorily complete for that license. Sure type.
Right. They would have the USPAP and then the 4-hour supervisory that they would need to take also.
So this just says the chart just says the 15-hour national USPAP course or its equivalent. So it doesn't mention the a supervisory course. So since it's not mentioned, I believe that would be included.
That's one question I would probably go back to the AQB and ask. How is it exempted on the 4-hour use or 4-hour supervisory? Because to be a trainee, you have to complete the 79 hours, which is principles, procedures, 15-hour use map, and the 4-hour supervisory.
Okay, so the trainee, okay, it looks like 60 hours, 15, so that would give you 75. So then, yes, you need the 4-hour supervisory course to hit 79.
Yeah, so I think like the experience is not included in any of those hours. So
Correct.
supervision you consider like an experience that students need to take.
They still have to follow all of the experience requirements. It's just the qualifying education.
Yeah, I have 3 questions about this as well. So I'll go ahead and ask them. One is on, so you mentioned you don't have appraisers as instructors or adjuncts, but in terms of, do you bring them in as guest speakers or interaction which the students are able to get?
Yeah, so every semester we bring 2 guest speakers, 2 appraisers that talk about the appraisal industry. Last year we brought Tracy Wofford. She's from Mississippi. And this semester we are bringing 2 people from CBRE, one from Memphis and one from Nashville, actually. And they come and talk about the appraisal, and they walk students through their process, their industry, and so on. A very enrichment experience, but they are not part of the university. That's what I'm trying to say. But we do have guest speakers that come every semester. They come and they give like at least 2 talks about what they do.
Okay, and my second question is, so yeah, you mentioned about collaborating with the state of Tennessee. So it was regarding, do you have any physical presence in the state of Tennessee, or how do you formalize? Because in terms of Commission's ability to ensure high quality education, University of Memphis is a well-known university, but still I think the Commission would like to make sure that we are able to monitor those delivery and the quality of education. So how do you foresee that?
So we are SACS approved. And they are that control the quality of the education. I don't see how we can interact, but if you see a way that we can interact, for sure I'll be happy to do it. I mean, I don't see anything.
I think is a good example, but I'm seeing in future once this is maybe you want to keep this type of line of communication open so the Commission can be aware of what's being taught.
Yeah, no, like absolutely. The whole point is that of the call is that we start a relationship. I mean, like that. Basically, we don't. It's not that this gets approved and I don't see you ever again. The idea is that if we have changes in the program, I will let you know. And if you want to discuss things that you see that there's a flaw, and the students that are coming out and you think that this needs to be improved, I will. We can have a talk and see how we can improve that for sure. But in terms of certifications as a program, we are SACS approved. We are approved by the Commission of the Business Schools. So I think we're high quality education. So that's what all Miss try to do. Or Mississippi tries to do.
And the third question I had is about collaboration with the Tennessee State University. So ETSU, MTSU, University of Memphis, they all have also real estate appraisal courses. Do you kind of count those for transfer credit if there are students who have taken these courses here in either community colleges or university and then doing a Ole Miss program?
Well, that's about my pay grade, but I can definitely ask about like that question in particular because we do receive transfer students all the time. Students that either want to go and study, to a different university, or students that from those universities that want to come to Ole Miss, to University of Mississippi. So we're not really. It's not a question for me particularly because it depends on the admission and advising. But as a program, if I have a look at their of the syllabus, I can put a good word if I think the syllabus match whatever we're doing.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Garate for just a couple more minutes, so I know he's got class coming up here pretty quick. So just want to make one final pass on questions. If you have any, now's the time.
I have a question. So this is approved for 260 hours, but we require certain courses to be taken for licensure. So, and they're not all included in this list provided. So would this effectively cover the allowed so many hours of elective? Is that what this would go towards?
So if you look at the bottom of the first page, right above the courses, it says there are no elective courses included among the ones that are listed. My understanding is that the courses that are provided by the Ole Miss are compared with what's required for individuals to complete for their qualifying education course. It might not have the correct name, but the content is going to match the typical content that would be provided. Does that make? And I think one thing just to clarify before Mr. Rate leaves is that this course or this program is not unique. There are at least 16 or 17 other jurisdictions that have courses have opportunities like this. The reason that the University of Mississippi is coming to us is because of its proximity to Tennessee. The other programs are not as close to Tennessee, and Mississippi's right below us. So this exists in other locations. It exists in bachelor's courses, associate's degrees, and I think there's one master's program. So it's just a matter of a first impression probably for this commission, but it's not a new concept.
Any other questions? Okay. Mr. Grazie, thank you for your time this morning. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and look forward to working together. If you have any other questions, you can send me an email. I think Caleb has my information, and he can share it with you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
One more thing I wanted to add about this program is that in order to receive credit for this degree to count towards your qualifying education, you're required to take every single course. So if you don't take one course, none of it gets approved for qualifying education. So it's a all or nothing kind of situation.
So the CG requires, 350 hours of education? So how will they know which courses they need in addition if they want to get their CG license? Is there some correlation or some detail outline that says these 7 classes here fulfill the sales comparison approach or the income approach or whatever? How will they know? It does. Oh, okay. How will they know what other classes they need to take to fulfill the CG requirements?
So, correct me if I'm wrong. If we're looking at like the CR or CG requirements, my understanding is that some of the courses from the previous licensure can count towards your qualifying education. So are you stating that you're completing 360 more hours of qualifying education? Okay. So this is going to say these are the course hours that are approved to go for CG. So if someone was to complete this whole program, they would be able to obtain a CG license after they complete all of the experience requirements.
Wait, are you saying these folks would only have to do 260 hours when we require 350 hours for a CG?
Is it like I'm confused. Okay, sorry. So when we're thinking 350, are you saying a 350 above and beyond what is required for the CR?
I'm going to go. I'm going to see if I can find
I was trying
the
to pull it up.
AQB requirement of the total hours, because there's a minimum hours of education for each level. I think it's 300 for CG.
I knew it was three
And
something.
they've changed both for the license and the certified residential.
We would need to be adding 15 hours for use map to this 260. So that'll put some more hours on the table, and the 4-hour supervisor. So we would be adding 19 hours to the 260.
That might not include the trainee 60, correct?
It shouldn't.
So that would.
My concern about the trainees course is you would need an appraiser to teach that class, not someone who's never done an appraisal. How would you teach how to be a supervisor if you've never been one? That would concern me.
So I'm looking at the appraisal education requirements and the rules. And for CG it says 300 hours of courses and subjects related to real estate appraisal, which shall include the 15-hour USPAP course, 30-hour appraisal principles, 30-hour appraisal practice or procedures, 30-hour general appraiser market analysis and highest and best use, 15 hours in statistics, modeling, and finance, 30 hours in general appraisal sales comparison approach, 30-hour course in general appraisal site valuation and cost approach, and 30-hour appraiser income approach, 30 hours of report writing and case studies, and then 30 hours of appraisal subject matter electives, which may include any hours over the minimum listed above in the hours I just provided.
Okay.
So there's nothing here that identifies report writing. It may be embedded in these courses, but it doesn't specify it. There's nothing in here that says how to do a cost approach. They're just generalized topics. Those topics may be included, but we don't know that. We don't know what's in there.
Well, they should be included because it's evaluated to mirror the qualifying education that an individual would take if they're not pursuing a bachelor's of business administration. So, as you were saying, Commissioner Atwood, the names don't match, but I think the content matches. Otherwise, I do not believe that it would be approved by the AQB as a course.
So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do we have some type of an alignment? Like, we would not allow someone who's not in this program to take the sales comparison approach class twice to get twice the credit. So I'm trying to figure out, how will they know what other class? Because it sounds like even with 279 hours, they're still going to have to take another class to get all their qualifying education for a CG to get up to 300 hours. How will they know what class they can take? How will we know they're not repeating course material? Do you see am I making any sense?
I think what we would want to do at that point is just like double check what exactly it is that University of Mississippi is submitting to us. So this is like a general letter that is sent to Mr. Garate, who is the point person for the the Bachelor of Business Administration. So, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, Caleb, but are we receiving additional documents above and beyond this 2-page document we're talking about?
Yes, he submitted 6 courses, and I believe there are some of the courses at the bottom of that page with some course material with them. But I didn't know if they were needed for this meeting or not.
We did, and they are. The finance, the mortgage banking, valuation, and appraisal, those are the 6 that he submitted. Finance 100. Finance 5. There's another 100, and I'm sorry, 351.
So these did not come through like Caleb or Morgan sending it for review. So it's not yet at that stage, I believe, right? I mean, I did receive the materials through you, but I didn't know if we are reviewing them or any approvals.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Jane, you received all of the materials that we received.
Okay.
The email was sent on the 22nd of December.
Right, but it's not in the education report. That's what I meant. I mean, it was not listed as whether for review or any approval. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So am I to understand also that when AQB approves it, we automatically approve it? The state must adopt it because AQB approved it. Is that correct?
That is my understanding of the process, sir.
So I would like clarification on what AQB approved. Does it say when you complete these courses that they have met all of their, other than USPAP and the supervisor trainee, does it say when they've taken these courses they have met all their obligations for QE except those 2 exceptions? Is that what AQB has approved?
Yes, that's in the chart.
So there won't be any additional classes that they're taking. They've already been approved by AQB to do that, and the state of Tennessee must adopt that.
Right, so the only things that we're missing would be listed here in the deficiencies tab column. So like if the program had more that it was lacking that's comparable to what is already required, it would be listed in the deficiencies column.
Yes, my thoughts are, and I'm looking at the AQB requirement. For CR, it's 200. For CG, it's 300. I was trying to, they're not clear on, I think, maybe the licensed is what it looks like, about 175. But if you look at the hours approved, 135, 185, and 260, you back off or you add 15 hours of USPAP, 4 hours supervisory. The CR is the only one that would surpass the minimum requirement by the AQB. Why didn't they just... And I know you can't answer that, but it would have been a whole lot easier if they would have done their math before they submitted this.
I can see if we have access to a document that has more clear math instructions, so you can see how it would add up to the 300, 200 numbers. I think that would just require asking or finding that information And then once we have it, I can bring it back to you for in April. So no one will have completed it at that time. So we're not in a jam kind of situation. But we can do some more research for sure and get back to you. And we'll see if we can also answer Commissioner Alexander's questions as well.
I think it's all the same. They're
Right.
coming up short with the number of total hours and
Right. I understand.
what's deficient.
I'm not good at math, but that's not 300.
Yeah,
So we'll see if I can get more information to you guys.
Very good.
If I could ask a favor, if you all would email us your specific questions, that would make it easier for us as opposed to going off our handwritten notes. So I want to make sure that we don't miss anything in translation.
I have some information I'm looking at the Appraisal Foundation, and what they say is that instead of a course-by-course approval, they are approving the entire degree, and that only leaves the 15-hour National USPAP course, generally speaking. Some degrees have other additional hours, but is the Appraisal Foundation same as AQB, or is that different activity? They're listed University of Mississippi, by the way, which we were just presented.
Yeah, the Appraisal Foundation, and it's sort of interesting how it sort of flows, but the Appraisal Foundation oversees the AQB and the ASB. The ASC, the Appraisal Subcommittee, is actually over all of it, but the Appraisal Foundation oversees the AQB and ASB, which the ASB is the Appraisal Standards Board. Is that
Thank you.
your understanding? Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so their website gives this, and a lot of questions we were asking, they're answered right there. If you want me to share the screen, I can do it, or we can do it in the next meeting.
We have to get your microphone's got to light up.
Sorry. So will the students in Tennessee be held to a different standard than students in Mississippi now?
I don't.
Are you talking about students that are just not taking it in the course of a degree program?
So if they take it in the degree program and in Mississippi, it looks like it's 260 hours, but I would assume that Tennessee is 300. Maybe I'm wrong. So if it's here in Tennessee, then they have to take 300, but in Mississippi they have to take 260, and they both sit for the same. Are we requiring Mississippi students to have less hours than their own state that we actually live in?
I don't think there's a program approved in Tennessee right now, correct?
There's not.
We don't have a Tennessee approved program at this moment, but I understand the question that you're asking, and it shouldn't be that way. So I'll just hopefully that question, I think, also kind of ties in to Commissioner Garrison and Commissioner Alexander's questions, is how the math is mathing for the required education. But yes, we don't have a Tennessee equivalent of this. I think the only other state that's kind of close, some kind, is in one of the Virginias, West Virginia
has
or Virginia.
one. Yeah. And I couldn't remember if Georgia State had one or not.
I didn't see Georgia on the list, but it doesn't mean that it's not on the list, because it's by my memory, but also it could be in the process of doing so. So this just is approved for the 2021 to 2023 to 2024 cycle. So we'll see. I'll figure out what's going on and get back to you guys, because that does not seem fair if that is the case.
Hopefully we'll have it in writing so we can break it down for everybody at the next meeting.
I had a question for the board. She said we do have 17 or more universities that offer this kind of degree program. If we get one of those programs in, because we've had some chatter about this program in the last month or two, but if we get something from Texas A&M or University of Florida has one, do y'all want to see it again? Do you want to see that program, or is this a generic thing that we're going to approve all across the board.
Those two that you mentioned have a master's.
They all, one of them does, I think, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, University of Florida and then Texas A&M have a master's program, and both are very strong.
Yeah, and since this is our first time kind of going through this process, we can do it any way you all want to handle it. So you just give us the kind of a pathway on what you would like to be made aware of, and we can do it.
Just for further discussion, right? Because there's no approval. If the AQB approves it, we're
right.
Okay.
So we can, moving forward, we can do this deep dive kind of stuff and talk about it, and or we can just show you a list and say these folks, these universities came in and applied, and it is, here it is. Here's the list.
I would think I know of two appraisers in Tennessee. One went through the University of Florida's program. The other one went through the Texas A&M. And I don't know, and I can check with them to see how they handled their education when they got their license. Because I know they were exempted pursuing the designation through the Appraisal Institute. It counted as their education to get the designation, which that education was over and above what we're talking about. So I'll check with them, see what they went through to get their license.
And I'd just like to state too, just so we're all keeping in mind, the degree means nothing if you don't have the experience. So that has to be completed. I hope that gives you a little peace of mind, Commissioner Atwood.
Yeah, and they also have to pass the exam.
Correct.
Which means they have to know what they're doing.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Are we ready for the next item? I would like to say that I did write down how the math is mathing, and I plan to use that at some other, of course, credited to Anna. Okay, I've got to find the agenda here on my screen. Got a lot open here.
I think we need to approve the agenda.
Yes, let's approve the agenda as amended, please.
We have an amended agenda.
Move to accept.
And we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. How do we want to vote with
voice
people?
vote's fine.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Agenda adopted.
All right, thank you, sir. We can now move to the next item, which is the election of officers. I will turn it over to you all to have your discussion, and we can take your time, have the discussion.
We'll open the floor for nominations.
what exactly are we nominating for?
We're naming
Chair and
Chair, vice chair.
We doing those separately?
I suppose whichever, you can pretty much do it any way you'd like. If you wanted to do it separately, that's fine. If you had three in mind you wanted to put out as en bloc, then you can make that proposal as well. We can always, even if you do propose it en bloc, we could always separate them.
Nominate Rex Garrison for chair.
Second.
Nominations closed.
Chairman? Yes, you can.
We can.
So moved.
Okay, the nominations are closed. Is there any further discussion? All right, then a voice vote will be sufficient for this. So all those in favor of Mr. Garrison remaining chairman, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Mr. Chairman, we need a vice chair.
I nominate Jim Atwood for vice chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a nomination and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. We have a vice chair.
All right, thank you very much. You can move on to the minutes now.
We have minutes submitted. We'll entertain a motion.
They sent out. I didn't see them.
I
I
didn't
haven't
get it.
received them.
Yeah, they weren't sent
We
out.
haven't received the minutes.
Sorry, were they not in the meeting material?
I only saw legal. I think this is a legal report.
Legal and education.
Well, shucks. Okay. What we'll do is we'll print out the copy. We can, if you'd like, we can move this agenda item to the bottom, and we
Sounds
can allow for some time so you all can review the minutes.
We'll move into legal report.
To present the cases, do you guys want to handle the cases case by case, or is there some that you want to lump together, or?
The first 6 were dismissals. I liked how they were organized. They were all.
I try to put them all together in an organized way. That way.
And typically we just open it up if there are any we want to pull out
Okay.
to handle. And so I'll open it up. Are there any of the first 6 that the recommendation was dismissal that we want to pull out and discuss or approve them as a group?
They approve as a group.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as a group. And what we will do is read those into record, each one, read them into record. So we have a motion and a second to approve council's recommendation. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. So we have accepted the first 6 recommendations. So if you want to read them into record.
Okay. The first one is case number 202-106-7361, and it was approved for dismissal. Second one is 202-106. 202-104-4001. Or is 202-106-8701. Next is 202-107-3051. And the last one is 202-106-6021.
Very good. We will move to,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I voted to dismiss, but number 4 bothers me, and I just wanted to utter my concern. This particular individual it didn't use the word, but is being accused of bias. And there are absolutely no grounds given to us to determine whether bias is involved here or not. I find this to be concerning in 2 ways. Either the individual is guilty of bias, but we didn't get the right information, and so we have to dismiss it, or they're not guilty of bias and they've been falsely accused, and I don't like either one of those. But I just wanted to say that on the record. There's nothing we can do about it. We've dismissed it, and that's all we can do. There is one question I would ask. Sometimes we identify the complainant by type. We don't ever identify names, of course, and I'm not asking for that. But sometimes we say a homeowner turned in, a realtor involved in the sale, and other times we don't identify and in this particular case, we didn't identify anyone. It sounds like a disgruntled appraiser to me. Is there any way in the future that we can at least identify the complainant in some category? If you know this is an appraiser who's turned in a complaint, can you say that to us?
Yes, I can. I apologize for not including that in there.
And can we kind of do that as we go forward? Yes. Thank you.
Good. Move into case number 7.
Mr. Chair, I think we can group number 7 and number 9. Is that the one? I think together.
7 and 9 or 7 and 8?
Well, 8 has a different. I mean, I would 7, 8, and 9. I would take the recommendation just given.
That a motion?
That is.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to accept 7, 8, and 9. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. So we have accepted 7, 8, and 9.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read those into the record. Number 7 is 202-106-7441. Number 8 is 202-106-7411. And number 8 is 202-106-7411.
Very good. That brings us to number 10. You just want to summarize
Yeah, okay.
number 10.
So this one was for a appraiser that was hired to perform an appraisal. This was filed by the homeowner. The homeowner disagreed with the appraisal. The respondent stated that they felt that the appraisal was done correctly, but then an expert review was sent out and there were some violations found. They found in the neighborhood section that there was non-compliance with the USPAP standards 1.1b and C and 2.1a and b. And then they found that the highest and best use analysis was incorrect as well and violated USPAP standards 1.1a and b, 1.3b, 2.1b, and 2.2a. Also found that there in that section they found that there was non-compliance with the USPAP standards 1.1c, 1.4a, 2.1a and b, and 2.2ax, 1, 3, and 5. They also found that there were issues with the cost approach section. And then they found that the income approach section was not developed and that there was not an appropriate statement as to why it was not applicable to be included in the report. They found that there were contradicting statements in the reconciliation section as well. And they did not submit the work file that they submitted made it appear that there could have been multiple appraisals included in this, but they did not include that in what they submitted to the department for their work file. So they found that that was an issue with the record keeping rule. And then there were several extraordinary assumptions listed in the report addendum, but that they did not note that these might have effect on the results. So as such, the expert review found that that was a violation in that section as well. And then so I based the classes that I picked based off a conversation with the expert review on what they found the issues were. And the fine was based off them having a previous incident where that was pretty similar. It has been 10 years, so that's why it wasn't exceedingly over what their previous fine was. But they had similar incidents in their previous consent order that was sent out.
Very good. Thank you. We have council's recommendation. It up for discussion or motion?
I'd like to point out, a lot of times, and we've had issues in the past with reviewers, but the detail within the review that was provided was really sufficient, and it's really, it helps us out a lot. understand the situation.
Yeah, we had a conversation about them, including more in the expert review, and also like making recommendations on the classes that they think are appropriate. So that's something that has been working on with the expert reviewers.
The statement about the income approach actually reads that the income approach was not developed and there was an appropriate statement as to why it was not applicable included in the report.
I apologize. That should say
That's
there was
a typo?
not. Yes,
Okay.
I apologize for that. Yes, the review said that there was not an appropriate statement as to why.
So you're saying that the previous consent order in 2009 had similar.
Yeah, so I only have limited
findings.
information on that because that's before our system that we use. But based on the information that I was able to find, I have a synopsis of it.
And we have no. I guess we have no other complaints since 2009
Correct,
until this
yeah.
one. I would suggest that the individual doesn't need all of these courses. I think the report writing course pretty much covers all of the issues found by the reviewer.
Okay.
So my motion is, I don't know about this consent order, the amount. I'll be glad for you to discuss it. I'm concerned that's a little high, but
Their previous consent order was for $1,000, so that's where I got that number off of. I went up since it's a similar issue.
did they take courses before in 2009?
Yes, so their previous consent order was for $1,000, and they did 30 hours of general appraisal income course classes.
Seems to me most of the issues are report writing issues, unless there's something.
I would throw out sales comparison. I would include it. I mean,
You would keep
sale prices of 9 comparables range from 380 to $1,425,000. It's a pretty broad range. Apparently, they had a hard time narrowing it down if they're including 9. But I would include a sales comparison with that. So do we have a motion?
I'm not making a motion. I'm just saying that my assessment is they need to take a 15-hour report writing course. And if we want to add something else to that, that's fine. But some of these others probably don't need to be there.
Yeah, I understand. That was just based off a conversation with the expert reviewer, what
That's
they
fine.
were finding the issues were. But I have no problem with a 15-hour report writing course and whatever you feel.
I'll throw in sales comparison.
How many hours you want for that?
I'll go ahead. The
problem with that is hard to find a 7-hour sales comparison.
Well, that's a minimum 7 hours, so they
Okay.
could take a 15, and it would cover it. That's giving them the minimum number of hours to.
Yeah,
to
and
hit.
I checked online. There are some ones that came up on the approved list for 7 hours of that as well. I checked all of the classes and ensured that there were online versions available.
There is a concern raised by the expert reviewer also on the highest and best use analysis. So is there a lack of expertise on part of this appraiser? I mean, then they may need all of the courses again.
The highest best use issue he brought up is related to report writing. He didn't include a summary of his highest and best use, which to me is, he didn't say the highest and best use was inaccurate. He said that he didn't state. So that to me is still a report writing issue.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we authorize a 15-hour report writing and a minimum of 7-hour sales comparison approach course. I don't think there needs to be a fine. So no, that's not included.
How long do they have to complete the courses?
180 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Okay, we'll move on to number 11.
Okay, so for this one, this was again a homeowner that filed the complaint. The respondent was hired by an appraisal management company. So this complainant alleged that they made false statements on the report and failed to fully analyze the sales used in the compare section and did not interpret the contract correctly. The respondent denied having any issues on that. An expert review was done, and they also found some issues for this report. They found that there was the same issue as the last one for the highest and best use analysis section, where they checked the box and then they did not. Then they included a statement as is, but nothing about if the vacant use was included. They found that there were some issues with the cost approach section. They found that it was not developed and there was not an appropriate statement as to why it was not applicable in the report. Once again, they found that the income approach was not developed and that there was not an appropriate statement as to why it was not applicable in the report. They found that the reconciliation section noted that it was a desktop appraisal, but that contradicted the previous scope of work that was mentioned in the report, and that was a violation of USPAP standards. So this person had two previous issues. He had an agreed order for two complaints that were combined as one, and then a 2011 consent order. So that's where the fine was coming from due to their history. However, it had been a long time, and the two previous issues, once again, I only have limited information on those, but they were for a different issue. So that's why it was only $1,000, even though they have two previous issues. And then the classes that were suggested were based on the expert review's recommendations.
Very good. Thank you. Open it up for discussion or a motion.
I would say this is much like the other one, and it's really an issue of report writing. So I would recommend the 15 hours of report writing within 180 days with no penalty.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Yes, sir. It says they did not do a cost approach. The reviewer did not say whether he provided a site value or not. If no site value was given, then no reason would have been made to do highest and best use as vacant. So we don't know whether this highest and best use statement by the reviewer is accurate. It says that the appraiser did make a highest and best use statement, and it's as is, but not as if vacant. So I don't know that that's an issue. So I'm agreeing with Ms. Alexander that it's a report writing thing. But I just wanted to make that statement. If he didn't provide a site value, he didn't need to provide a highest and best use as vacant. I say he, it's generic. I don't know. I just get in the rut of saying that, I apologize.
So the recommendation, and this I guess goes back to the last one as well. This is in addition to continuing education requirements, correct?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I just have for my own clarification purposes as how many how many times do you get before you guys fine? Or it seems like this person, now this looks like maybe the third incident. And so, I guess it's been in 10 years. So this is a learning experience for me. So you all would have to, if it's repetitive at some point.
historically, we've usually hit on education, and there's a cost for the education. This one, what gave me heartburn was the two prior, and I probably could be persuaded to hit them a little bit harder because of the two prior, but in looking at the recommendation and what they talked with on the reviewer who actually saw the report, probably some coursework is in order. So yeah, that's and typically, and this is just historically in the time frame I've served on the board, if they've had several priors and they were given education previously, obviously it's not sticking, so they hit the penalty a little bit more financially, maybe to get their attention. But that'll change on situations and the makeup of the board too.
Do we know what the last two were concerning or what they were about?
Yes, they were about. They claim they allegedly overvalued a home. Both of them are about that. And I have what those civil penalties were and what they were required to do for those, if you'd like to have.
What were they required to do on those?
So for the agreed order, they had a $3,000 civil penalty, and they had to take 45 hours of corrective education. And then for the 2011 one, they were placed on a year probation. So that's why I picked a fine for this one, because it is a different issue, but it just was their third incident.
It was definitely that it was serious.
But I want to give this appraiser a benefit of the doubt that he's improved himself, herself, because these are not that serious. As you just mentioned, these are not, to me, that serious. And so hopefully the individual has trained themselves.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. We're discussing. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Okay. Motion passes.
That concludes all the cases on.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the last meeting, it sounded like there were several in the pipeline. Are we going to see? Who knows? Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
We'll probably have more to present to you, but this is Taylor's first legal report, which I think she did a fine job.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that the April report might be a little bit more hefty, so we'll see.
Okay. Right. I was anticipating when I opened it up, there wasn't that much, but we appreciate you. You did it very efficient, and we appreciate that.
We're waiting on some extra reviews to come back for some, and then a lot of conditional dismissals for also. So
very good.
Made it a little bit shorter.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move. Do we want to jump back? Want to take a recess?
Take a few minutes to review the materials I just handed you, or
okay. Why don't we do about a 10-minute recess? They can hit restrooms, look over this, and then we'll.
Sure, that'd be great.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone, from that 10-minute recess. I believe we are At the report of experience interviews.
Very good. I believe that's there. We have several to approve for experience. I'm first on the list. I was checking names. Yeah, those four. I have interviewed all four and recommend approval on all four. Unless there's an objection, we'll do these as a group, all of them at once. So I recommend approval for my four. Next is Commissioner Atwood.
Okay, you've got one on my list that is Mr. Garrison's. That's Derek Allen. I did not interview him.
Okay. Yeah, I do see his name on the sheet twice.
Okay. The only one that I recommend for approval at this time is Lindell Lynch. Mr. Arnold is on hold. Lindell Lynch is the only one I recommend.
Okay. Commissioner Mansfield?
Recommend yes to all four there.
That is all of them. So it would be a group of all of them on the list, excluding Mr. Arnold. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a total of nine
Right.
for yes and the one hold.
One on hold. Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Okay, we approve 9 individuals' experience. And we'll move on to the education report.
All right.
That one will be on the PDF.
Yes, and I can provide some background there. So in the last meeting of the commission in November, some concerns were raised about the quality of education that appraisers were getting before coming for the interview. So we now make sure that we are requesting content for everything which is submitted for approval, the complete content, instead of just a table of content. And the idea behind that is that even if there is a poor delivery by the instructor in the classroom, at least the materials provided could serve as a self-study tool if, to improve the knowledge base of the appraiser. So with that, I think most of the items listed for approval provided complete contents. There was a little bit of delay in some of these because of the SharePoint access issues, and I'm working with commission staff to make sure that we do something about the SharePoint access so it's more timely. There was also no alert which I get, so it was something we need to set up. Morgan has been good. She sends an update when she uploads something. Caleb was doing that as well. So a couple of them might be because of the lack of alerts, but mostly they are not yet provided complete contents. So those marked with approval have provided, have reviewed, and they look good. So my motion is to approve the items listed with the recommendation to approve.
Very good. We have a motion for acceptance of education. Okay, we have a second. Further discussion?
So the ones that don't have approved by it are not approved, correct? Is that the correct understanding? Okay.
Right. I think some of them are on hold for providing complete materials. Others are not approved. Yeah. They can always resubmit, right? So until then, and they're not approved.
Will this hinder them getting something before April? For the next time we get a chance to approve?
No, we will go. we'll go back, and it's backdated, so they won't miss anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Very good. Further discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Okay, the education is approved. We'll move on to the director's report.
Well, since we've discussed the Ole Miss stuff, and we put that at the top, you can see my director's report is not very it's not very filled out. So what you have is the typical financial sheet that I wanted you all to just be able to take a look at. This one gets us through November of last year. This is the most recent one we have at the moment, but it's fiscal year of July 1 start date. So you can see that we are doing well financially. We collecting our registration fees and whatnot, and currently sitting on a $2.9 million reserve fund. Any questions?
Don't think so.
Okay. Well, I guess now it's time to go to the real discussion stuff, huh?
Yes, let's go back and hit the minutes. Approve the minutes. We took a recess to review. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented or any changes. Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving last meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Minutes are approved. Very good. Now we'll move to the old business. The first item is short-term rentals. How we left it at the last meeting, Commissioner Mansfield volunteered to create some FAQs and concerning short-term rentals. So I'll pass it on to him to discuss.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody's had a chance to take a look at it, but obviously I assume this is a draft, and any suggestions, we could incorporate. I'm not entirely sure. I know the last time, I think, was with evals. We did the FAQs. So how does the process work from here? Do we just need to approve this, or?
So from here, if you all are okay with this this version without changes, or if you do make changes, we'll then take it and put it through our internal process of approval. It'll have to be signed off on, and just because it's forward facing, we want to make sure that legal takes a look at it, and then our comms team will take a look at it, and the assistant commissioner and deputy commissioner will both take a look at it. And it won't take that much longer for us to go through that process, and we could probably get it done with your approval of this in whatever form it comes to. We could probably start that process today and have it posted on the website under FAQs by the end of the week. That's it's not an exact timeline, but hopefully.
Can I ask some preliminary questions? Can you tell me what FF&E and FNMA stand for?
So FF&E is furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So that would be personal property within real estate. FNMA is Fannie Mae.
Thank you.
We would go through and write that out completely.
Yeah, we can define it like you did for short-term rentals. I just need to know what to put before. Look, it is there. Oops, can't read.
I have a question. I haven't read all this, so it may be answered, and I just didn't see it. Any of you think short-term rentals only be a CG?
I pointed it out in here that it's really a highest and best use issue. If a certified residential appraiser can appraise these, but they have to go through a thorough highest and best use and have the competency to do so. And if they determine that the highest and best use is not, nightly rentals, and even if it is, I mean, if they have the competency to do so and it falls within the valuation threshold, then they can.
Because it's my experience that most of the people doing these are CRs.
And that's part of the reason we're bringing this up.
A lot of what's happening is they're valuing these properties and packaging these products that are secured by the secondary market that are supposed to be real estate only, and really they're not. And so hopefully this is a warning or just a guidance for residential appraisers who are doing these, because they will be the ones that are accountable.
This is more being proactive.
I thought you did a nice job. Thanks for putting a lot of work.
Great job. So do we need to approve this, or do we wait on revisions through the proper channels?
You all would approve this with the understanding that there might be some cosmetic changes to it. If it's substantially altered, we would represent it to you. If it's, when we go in and type out FF&E, because each one of these will appear separately from each other instead of as one document. So we'll go out and we'll, write out the FF&E and the STR and all that sort of stuff. But, and then we can post it. But like I said, if there's substantial change to it, we would kick it back and let you all see it, reapprove it.
One question I have is, how do we communicate to the masses? I know it will be on the website, but they may not think to look at the website on a regular basis. Is there a way that we can communicate to the masses that there is a new set of FAQs concerning short-term rentals?
Yeah, we have the ability to send out a mass email to the entire group of registrants and let them know that we could do any number of combinations. We can send it embedded in an email and say you can also find these on our website, or we can just alert them and send a link. We'll probably err on the side of caution and include them in the email. This is an update to our email. We wanted to make sure you're all aware of it. If you need to see this again, you can find it here.
There probably will be some feedback on this.
Hopefully they have your number.
I've already dealt in one situation, somebody a little concerned about it. But I think being proactive, it comes down to competency side of USPAP and just being proactive of an issue that's going to come about when the economy changes.
Well, if we get anything that we're unsure of that doesn't pertain to any need for legal interpretation, we'll be sure to utilize you all as subject matter experts, and we'll give you a shout. But I think that hopefully most of it will be policy related, and we should be able to handle any and all feedback.
Very good. Very good. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the FAQs on the STRs, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you all. Thank you, Commissioner Mansfield. Let's move on to the independent appraiser reviews. We received after the last meeting some information from Anna. Would you like to discuss that more or have more information for us?
Yes. So what I did was I provided some additional information that is found in our statutes regarding, I guess, the independent appraisal matter. So I guess these would be something that we can discuss. And we wanted to talk about what the rules and statutes say and how to interpret them. So I'll start with, hold on. So Tennessee Code annotated 62-39-103. It states that it's unlawful for anyone to solicit an appraisal assignment or to prepare an appraisal or an appraisal report relating to the real estate or real property in this state without first obtaining a real estate appraiser's license or certificate. This section shall not be construed to apply to individuals who render professional services, professional assistance in arriving at a real estate analysis, opinion, or conclusion. It also says nothing in this chapter shall be construed to prohibit any person who is licensed to practice in this state under any other law from engaging in the practice for which the person is licensed. So that statute kind of talks about some of the matters, and I think it's worth having a discussion to see if we think individual appraisal reviews fall into the categories of a real estate analysis, opinion, or a conclusion. Those are some good things to keep in mind here. The next statute essentially provides a list of exemptions for when you don't require a license. So the first one states that this chapter does not apply to a real estate broker or salesperson licensed by the state who in the ordinary course of business gives an opinion to a potential seller or third party as to the recommended listing price of real estate, or an opinion to a potential purchaser or third party as to the recommended purchase price of real estate. This opinion as to the listing price or the purchase price shall not be referred to as an appraisal, and no opinion shall be rendered as to the value of the real estate or real estate property. So this doesn't apply to full-time employees who give opinion of the value of real estate by the employee's employer. So I'm thinking about local appraisers that work for like the property assessor's office, and that the opinion may not be represented as an appraisal. So C doesn't really apply here when we're discussing it, but then it also provides another category of individuals this does not apply to for the evaluation of serving a collateral loan by a federally regulated financial institution, which I don't think necessarily touches on this. Does this? Okay, so I won't spend your time working on that. But the statutes before 6239-103 and 6239-104, I think those are going to be important statutes to look at when we're making these determinations. And also just the definitions of what an appraisal assignment, appraisal report, review assignment, and valuation appraisal mean. So I can read whichever of those different definitions that you want, that you believe that are going to be particularly helpful on point for this discussion. But this is like the information that I have here in the statute. So really, as I stated before, it's up to the commission to make a decision for how to read your own rules and laws. We did look at, I did look at previous laws and rules from other states, and that would give kind of authority that's more persuasive, like for us to look at yes or no, but it's not necessarily binding on the state of Tennessee. And so really kind of want to make a determination if we're looking at this from a singular point of view and saying all individual reviews are this or that, or if we want to look at things necessarily kind of on a case-by-case basis, looking at the facts and circumstances. I know that people are relying on some kind of explanation of how this works and whether a license is required or not, but ultimately that decision would fall into your jurisdiction or your discretion about how that can be handled. So you just tell me how you want to move forward.
Yeah, one thought too, on the appraisal management side, that is a more current interpretation, or the most current revised law. I guess it came into play, but it clearly states that you must be licensed to do independent reviews or
Okay. I'll
and
read 413. I'll read it for the group. So this is 6239-413. It's part of the AMC Registration and Regulation Act, which is just Chapter 4 in our statutes. It states, any employee or independent contractor of an appraisal management company who performs an appraisal review service on an appraisal done on real property located within Tennessee must be an individual who holds a license as defined in 62-39-102 or certification as defined in 6239-102. So those are just the certifications for the licensure requirement for individuals here in the state. It states letters of engagement shall include instructions to the appraiser to decline the appraisal review assignment in the event that the appraiser is not geographically competent or the assignment falls outside of the appraiser's scope of practice restrictions. The definition for appraisal in the AMC Act states that an appraisal means the act or process of developing an opinion of value of identified real estate. That opinion of value may be numerically expressed either as a specific amount, as a range of numbers, or a relationship to a previous value opinion or other numerical benchmark. Appraisal does not include any opinion of value referred to as evaluations under 6239-104. And so 104 is the statute that I read to you previously. that provides the exemptions of individuals that do not require a license.
But for the AMC, it's a little more clear.
Correct. So the AMC statute seems to be more black and white than the part that applies generally to the state licensing and certified real estate appraisers law. The unfortunate part is I don't really think that you can read them independently because it's all under one title for one profession. So I think that if you're going to make an argument that 62, like the appraisal management part is the binding part, I think you would also have to take into account what's said in parts 1, 2, and 3 as well. So you can read it holistically. I think holistically is the way to read it, but that makes things a little bit more complicated. But that's what we have. So another thing that I wanted to state it is, even though we're having this discussion, and if we were to arrive at a decision or to defer a decision, nothing that is made today or in April, November, September, whenever, is necessarily like 100% binding. Like, the commission is able to look at additional information, such as cases that come in or individuals that have information that we want to look at to be considered. So we can make a decision now, but that doesn't mean that's the end-all, be-all decision. What is probably going to be the most binding decision would be a court case that explicitly states A, B, C, or D. But that also kind of doesn't really kind of work how court cases are. Sometimes they're directly on point. Sometimes it's just like a general conversation around a particular statute. You can look at, there are different ways of interpretation of statutes. So if you want to interpret the statute as plain meaning, reading what it says and that's what it means, you can. If you want to look at the statute from an angle where you're considering legislative intent, what you think the intent of the promulgation of the statutes or rules, that's also something you can factor into your decision. It's there are a lot of different things that go into statutory interpretation, but all of it comes down to how the commission right now reads their rules and laws. But if it were to change based on additional information or additional guidance, like let's say that one of the alphabet agencies decided that they were going to make a document that says this is what it says for individual appraisal reviews, we'd probably want to look at that as more than persuasive. So I just did a lot of talking. Does anyone have any additional questions for me?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there in the state law a definition of appraisal review? I didn't see that.
No. So I have a definition for appraisal assignment, appraisal report, review assignment.
Oh, review assignment. Okay, let me see that.
Review assignment means an analysis, opinion, or conclusion prepared by a real estate appraiser that forms an opinion as to the adequacy and appropriateness of a valuation appraisal or an analysis assignment.
There's not a specific law that puts review assignment as state licensing as a requirement to do a review assignment?
The definition said licensed appraiser, correct? On the review?
It says appraisal. I haven't seen review.
No, the
So if we're looking at review assignment, it states a real estate appraiser. It doesn't say that they have to be licensed here. It just says it says analysis, opinion, or conclusion prepared by a real estate appraiser that forms an opinion as to the adequacy and appropriateness of evaluation appraisal or an analysis assignment.
I'm looking for a cut and dry, yes, black and white. Do I have to be licensed to do a review assignment by stated law somewhere that you can quote?
Hold on, Jim.
And I think, and this is just an opinion, when this law was written, there wasn't as many appraisals that were being reviewed, and going up to and it's really just a couple words inserted in a couple sentences that would clear it up. And I know that would require a change in law, but I guess my thought, if you're going to define, if the law was, when it was written, if they're going to go through the effort to define a review assignment, isn't there an intent there? And the verbiage to say a real estate appraiser would be required to do it. And you could also go on to infer that in the state of Tennessee, a real estate appraiser must be licensed.
So, in the AMC portion of the statute, when it is talking about appraisal management services, it has a list of one or more things that would be considered appraisal management services. And one of them states reviewing and verifying the work of appraisers. So the options are recruiting, selecting, and retaining appraisers, contracting with state certified or state licensed appraisers to perform appraisal assignments, and then managing the process of appraisers. And then the fourth category would be reviewing and verifying the work of appraisers. The only one that says that you are required to be licensed would be contracted with the state certified or state licensed appraisers to perform appraisal assignments.
Didn't follow what you were saying.
So of the four different meanings of appraisal management services, it says means one or more of the following.
Right.
A says recruiting, selecting, and retaining appraisers. B says contracting with state certified or state licensed appraisers to perform appraisal assignments. C says managing the process of having an appraisal performed, including providing administrative services such as receiving appraisal orders and appraisal reports, submitting completed appraisal reports to creditors and secondary mortgage market participants, collecting fees from creditors and secondary mortgage market participants for services provided, and paying appraisers for services performed. And D says reviewing and verifying the work of appraisers. So an appraisal management service is one or more of the following.
Right. Right. And then it goes on, Tennessee Code 62-39-413 says that any employee or independent contractor of the appraisal management company who performs an appraisal review service on an appraisal done on the real property located in Tennessee must be an individual who holds a license as defined. So it goes on to say that if they are performing that either as an employee or an independent contractor, they must be licensed.
For an appraisal management company.
Right.
Not for others.
Right. And the concern is since a lot of this really started after 2010 when appraisals they're now having to be reviewed. There are companies out there that are appraisers shifting and specializing in doing review work. And that's all they're doing is review work. So should they be licensed in the state of Tennessee to do appraisal reviews? And they are contracted and they're working as independent contractors for lenders. Lenders will farm it out. It's the same thing that they do for appraisals. They contract out to an appraiser to perform an appraisal assignment.
I think I remember from the conversation, I think it was Mr. Bennett that was stating that there was an appraiser, even though they're not practicing, that worked at a bank and was doing review.
I brought that up, and it was a situation in Knoxville. A retired banker was now doing appraisal reviews who was not licensed. And he was being contracted by different banks to do review work. And several appraisers were saying, hey, wait a minute, this guy's not licensed.
So, not licensed anywhere?
Exactly. And anywhere is sort of, and that opens a whole nother door because it's been brought up, well, if they're licensed in Georgia, then they should be able to do a review in Tennessee. However, that works until there's a complaint, and then we have no jurisdiction over that review appraiser.
If they're licensed here?
No, if they're licensed in Georgia, if they're just licensed, they're licensed somewhere. Right. Because that's an argument that people have. Well, if they're licensed in Georgia, not licensed in Tennessee, but they do a review and there's a complaint filed, we have no jurisdiction. That shouldn't allow them to be able to do review work in Tennessee just because they're licensed in another state.
My question would be why do we not have jurisdiction if the property is in Tennessee?
So if we have jurisdiction, then they should be licensed in Tennessee. Otherwise, we don't have jurisdiction. Now it becomes that they are a non-licensed, they're practicing with a no license. So my understanding is it doesn't fall under the jurisdiction of this commission, but it's shifted over to Attorney General because they're violating state law. But it's not clear if you have to be licensed or not in Tennessee. And that's all I'm sort of questioning. Let's clear this up. You have to be licensed in the state of Tennessee and be done with it.
Right. And I get that, but I'm looking at the definition when we're looking at review assignment. In the not appraisal part, it says a real estate appraiser. It just doesn't say where they're working. And so that's the question that we're looking at, but I am trying to understand on jurisdictional purposes why we would not have jurisdiction over the property.
Okay, so how do we, if let's take an example. An appraiser that is a certified general appraiser in the state of Georgia reviews an appraisal on a property in Johnson City, where I'm from, and there is a complaint filed against them. Okay, they are not licensed in the state of Tennessee. How do we have jurisdiction to go after them?
I don't think it's necessarily just the appraiser. Like when I'm looking at it, when I'm looking for jurisdictional purposes, when I say something doesn't have jurisdiction, that means that we don't have any ties to Tennessee. Like none of the licensees are from Tennessee. So we have out-of-state people that are filing complaint against some company in Florida. We're not going to have jurisdiction over that purpose, but I'm looking at it for we either have jurisdiction of the area or we have jurisdiction of the person. So if you're working in Tennessee on a Tennessee assignment, you would still be held to the Tennessee standards that we have.
So are you saying that if a complaint was filed on someone who did a review on a property in Tennessee, but they're licensed in Georgia, we would still be able to require and assess civil penalties and require them to do education, but they don't hold a license in Tennessee? I think that's what we're trying to get is how would we be able to assess those items if the appraiser is not licensed in Tennessee?
Is there any way to amend or to change the review assignment definition to include current state license or current state whatever real estate appraiser?
That is possible, but not this year. So that would require a change in the law, which means we would have to file a bill with the General Assembly, which would not go through this session. If that's something that we want to look at in the future, we every year are able to do legislative proposals. That's one of the things that we coordinate with the executive director and with the department. And if that's something that we believe in wanting to do, then we can consider that. But it's not going to be something that can easily be fixed, if that makes sense. If it was a rule,
it's not going to happen quickly. It would probably not go into effect until sometime in 2023.
Right, and that's only if it was to get picked up by a representative or a senator, which is not exactly promised in the kind of situation. So to answer your question, it is possible, but it is not, I don't know how to give you a predictive, like a time frame of when that could happen. So
once we submit something like that for approval, it's out of our hands at that point. You know, we've done all our work and now it's up to somebody else. So that timeline just begins to really open up.
Would we have to talk to a representative to possibly pick that up?
There are a number of different things that could be done, a number of different avenues that could be looked at. You know, I mean, if there's an association that wanted, you know, let's say that representatives didn't want to run it, but the association wanted to pick it up and try and run with it, you know, and they could do some work on that end too. I mean, there's a lot of different combinations on how something like this could be accomplished.
Is there a definition in there for real estate appraiser?
real estate appraiser.
Yeah.
Yes. Real estate appraiser means a person who engages in real estate appraisal activity for a fee or other valuable consideration.
Okay.
I'm going to look, okay, so I know that I'm going to circle back on the jurisdictional question because I've got myself confused now.
Well, I mean, one thing to think about, if you say that they can do a review, then, and it's a little more clear on doing an appraisal, but an appraiser in Georgia must be licensed to perform an appraisal.
So the answer that I come back to is the answer that we're arguing about. So if it was somebody that came from another state and was doing activities in our state, typically that would be considered unlicensed activity. Typically, that would be considered. And so that's something to think about. That's what I was thinking about, and I had confused myself about that. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure. But as Mr. Scholl said, the department can only do so much when it comes to legislative proposals. We have to look at them for all of the department, but oftentimes if there's another association or if there's another entity that moves legislation that would like to carry said idea, that's how it works sometimes. That's not prohibited. So there are different options there, but I need to answer my own question first. But I doubt, I do not think it would be picked up this session.
No, it probably wouldn't be this session.
Yeah, no, like this session's already begun.
Right. It would be 2023.
Right.
And I guess my concern from the beginning, they went so far as to define a review assignment. Why, and specifically state a real estate appraiser.
They do say real estate appraiser, but they don't say where. Like you would think that it would say a license, like a state licensed real estate appraiser. That would be so nice if it said it right, but it's not there.
Is it on the appraiser side?
Right?
Sorry?
Go ahead, Carrie.
Just think, you would have to say the current state. I mean, you couldn't just say state license because that could be misconstrued if they're state licensed in Massachusetts. Are they going to be? I mean, it just seems very vague. All this does.
I think if you're reading the law in Massachusetts and it says state licensed, you would assume state licensed in Massachusetts. I'm not going to think, oh, that applies to someone in California. But as you were saying, that is correct. I definitely think that statutes or laws and rules sometimes can get very vague and very confusing, which is kind of what's happening right here. But that's like the unfortunate part of having statutes written at a specific time that don't necessarily anticipate these types of events evolving as such. So, for example, this was written in 1990. It's been a good 32 years. So that's what happens sometimes. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that we can get up to date.
Yeah. To say on the review assignment, to insert the word license appraiser, if you jump to the definition of real estate appraiser, it doesn't say anything about license for an appraiser. I mean, that's what it's all about is falling under the licensing law. So, I mean, to add that word to it shouldn't matter because it's all falling under the licensing law, and it's just specifically saying real estate appraiser, which is inferred in the law that they should be licensed in the state of Tennessee.
So
because we're talking about the law in Tennessee.
I'm looking at section 103. It says, except as provided in section 104, which is what we looked at before, that says, 103 states, it is unlawful for anyone to solicit an appraisal assignment or to prepare an appraisal or an appraisal report relating to real estate or real property in the state without first obtaining a real estate appraiser's license or certificate. I don't see review assignment.
That's going all the way back when we discussed this before, when Sarah was, that is where that would be inserted, is including the review appraiser as
right.
And you mentioned this law was written in 1990. You know, professions evolve over time, and with interagency guidelines, and Frank Dodd changed the profession to a degree that reviews are being done constantly. And that clarification would be helpful going forward. And it's just in preparation for when the economy changes.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Practically speaking, none of this is going to get changed today or this year, obviously. So as a commission, I think there's some practical things that we can look at so that we can continue to move forward. We don't get any, I don't remember a single complaint on a review that since I've been on the commission. So we're not getting those complaints, but you're thinking they're coming, and they probably will. The moment a review appraiser gives an opinion of value, he's done an appraisal. Therefore, he cannot do that. He or she cannot give an opinion of value within a review report without having a license as of Tennessee Code 6239103A. But a review appraiser who's giving no opinion on value and is using the definition, the USPAP definition of appraisal review, which is developing an opinion of the quality of another appraiser's work. You don't have to be geographically competent to do that. But you should have competence in the property type. You have to have competence. So someone in California could do a review competently, a USPAP review of someone who's appraising in Tennessee. They could do that. In fact, when I was serving as the reviewer for the state here, I would be asked to do reviews in areas of the state that I was not geographically competent in. However, I was competent to be a USPAP reviewer. I am competent to do that wherever you live. So practically going forward, if in the body of a review report, the reviewer gives an opinion of value and he's not licensed with the state of Tennessee, he's violated our law, and we can move on that. If that individual does not give an opinion of value, then our role is to judge the competency of the individual to do his scope of work, whatever it was he was assigned to do. So we can practically move forward with those 2 points. I don't know that we can do anything else until the law changes.
I think until the law changes, but if like the commission wanted to come to some decision, they could, but I would prefer that you have all of the information, but I don't foresee a magical document appearing before April, answering all of our questions. So is this the question that we're kind of asking because we have individuals that are not doing review assignments because they're concerned that it's considered unlicensed activity? Like, is there an area or a group of people right now that are directly impacted, or is this like solely for the future of when
There are reviews being conducted today by those outside of state of Tennessee on properties in Tennessee.
Okay.
They're happening every day.
There's adjacent states to Tennessee where the law is that you cannot do appraisal reviews unless you have a license in that state.
Kentucky being one.
If it takes so long to do the law or to change these items, would it be best not to draft something up and go ahead and get working on it so that in 2 years we do have it changed, or in a year and a half it is changed, instead of just keep postponing? It's never going to get changed if we don't start drafting something to try to make it happen, if that's what we're wanting to do.
I can speak to that timeline. If we wanted to be considered for next year, this would need to go through a lengthy internal process as well, which takes a while. So we have an internal deadline that I believe is going to be sometime, May or June?
Right. If we do the proposal, be like right at the end of spring, beginning of summer, and we'll have answers after decisions are made by higher up people, probably towards the end of that. But I mean, we can have language that's drafted, essentially a red line of what we would be adding or what we would be deleting. So I have done legislative proposals for multiple programs. Sometimes they get picked up, sometimes they don't get picked up. And so if they don't get picked up, I put them in the proposal again for the next year, dependent upon what happens in the conversation with the executive director, and those, or the commission's input, or those kinds of things. So we can definitely work on language. That's not a problem. It's just where we can make sure that that language goes is the issue. Like, the language can be done pretty soon, but there are other considerations that are outside of this commission and outside of like my legal division or executive director that has to be considered. Like, there are other people too. And like, if we wanted to also really look at it, typically we have issues if we're concerned about constitutionality. I would want to check in with the Attorney General's office to make sure it passes constitutionality, because then we don't want it not to, because it will become like null and void. And then we can go from there. So we can certainly have it ready. It's just the vehicle that is required to arrive at the location that we want is taking the scenic route involuntarily. So you said Kentucky. Do you know of any other states that for sure says that, like, around us? Because
West Virginia, we don't touch West Virginia,
Right.
but I know West Virginia.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is I would just want to look and see what their language would look like to mirror our language after that. So, I know. I'm sorry. I was like, I know that it's really frustrating, and I know it's something that we need and something that is definitely going to be required in the future if the market changes. I said if, because I'm not. It so, but we're gonna do as much as we can to be as expeditious as possible.
Mr. Garrison, you said there are many people doing these reviews today. Are you aware of whether they're giving an opinion of value within their review?
I think they're performing standard 3 in some cases.
But are they agreeing or disagreeing with the value in their report?
I don't know on that. I mean,
so if they are, they violated our state law. They become an appraiser.
Well,
at that point.
yeah.
So I was wondering that something very practical we might be able to do today, and that is put something on the website that says that if you're doing a review report and you're giving an opinion of value in the state of Tennessee, you must have a license in the state of Tennessee. I mean, we could put that. We could put that on the website. Some type of statement like that. I would say that covers 80 to 90% of the reviews being done. Almost all clients want your opinion of whether you agree with the value or not. I don't know, why do you want a review if you don't want that information? And if that's the case, we could at least, we don't need state legislation to put a statement on the website that if you are giving an opinion of value in your review report and you do not have a license in the state of Tennessee, you're in violation of the state law. Something like that could be done today.
Like, we can do that if that's something that the commission wants to do. That's like certainly a fix for those 80 to 90%. Not sure what the other 20% would be, just me personally, but if that's something that you would like to do, I would prefer to have a vote on it, just for the record, and then I'll draft some language, send it to a couple people to see if this is exactly what I'll send it to Mr. Atwood and Mr. Garrison to make sure that is what you intend it to be, and that's something we could add to the website if the commission so desires.
I think it would be good. I think it would give some clarification. If we don't do anything, then in essence we're saying you don't have to be licensed, and that's my point on this. We need to be doing something, otherwise you're not licensed. It's okay to be not licensed in the state of Tennessee.
Okay.
Want to make that as a motion?
I can make that as a motion. That
it's a start.
That we place something on the website that basically indicates that a review appraisal that includes an opinion of value requires a state license in the state of Tennessee.
That includes agreeing with the value.
Exactly what it says here. I mean, it says right here what it is. The opinion may be numerically expressed as a specific amount, a range of numbers, or a relationship to a previous value, opinion, or other numerical benchmark. So if you just say, I agree with the value, you've given an opinion of value.
I would second that motion. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion is approved. Next item is Perea discussion. I don't think there's been anything new with regard to Perea.
I don't think so. I'm just kind of wanted to make sure we didn't lose sight of it, and just in case. You know, I know
it's in the works. It's being worked on. So
sure, and I know it's an ongoing discussion. Mm-hmm. So until you tell me otherwise, I will keep it under old business.
I don't know of any other items that we need to.
I bring up something
Yes.
we discussed at the last time we'd made mention when we were talking about the financial report about the possibility of providing USPAP to our licensed appraisers. And then we kind of tabled the discussion and said it brought up. And I kind of wanted to bring it back up as, we've got 9 months until the new USPAP comes out. So I kind of wanted to bring that back to light.
Is that something other states provide USPAP to the licensed body? Is that something that we can look at doing? And I think, and if I think it was Kentucky provides a digital copy, so it would be save the expense of mailing them out, but provide a digital copy to the licensees.
Talking about the 20.
No, this would be the 2023, 2024 that'll be coming out.
Okay.
We can figure it out. We can.
What's the plan? Excuse me. What's the plans for the 2.9 million in reserve?
Well, we're required to have about 2.5 years of operational budget in reserve. So that's a large.
Most of it.
That's most of it. Yes. And that's statutory. So, things like this, it just depends on it can reevaluate it every year. If it becomes an expenditure, that you want to make yearly, we can evaluate it every year.
It would be every other year is when it comes out.
But, for budgetary purposes and putting it in there, we could definitely, I guess, renew it, so to speak, through action of the board. Or, if you guys wanted to try and make it permanent, we could look at something like that as well. However, if you make it permanent, and you know how money works.
One complaint about our profession is that it charges those that are in it, it charges them a fee to get the rules that they have to live by.
What state gives a digital copy?
Kentucky does. Virginia, since the beginning, provided a hard copy. I don't know if they'll shift to a digital copy. I would think everyone would go to a digital copy now, save the mailing expense. But Kentucky provides a digital copy. They charge us. Yeah, they charge every other year to get a copy of USPAP. Yeah.
We have to check on some things. Licensing in terms of distribution. Or does it cost to, is there a licensing fee? Do we have to do something about that?
I would
kind of like
say,
one of those rebroadcasted football game
right.
things.
That would have to be worked out with the Appraisal Foundation. And I think they probably have a group rate or something on purchasing, a number of copies that you can submit.
You can take a look at it.
Very good. Thank you. I believe that covers us. So I will entertain a motion.
Move to dismiss.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can suspend the recording.